All right, so I think we can get started. Again, thank you all for joining. We'll have a couple of participants later today, Jordan West, but for now, I'll get started. So most AI strategies I see start with one sentence in a leadership meeting, right? And then someone's like, let's get everyone like ChatGPT licenses, or let's get everyone Claude access and or Copilot or Gemini, whatever platform they're using, probably one of the big four. Right? The tool changes, but the sentence doesn't. Like everybody thinks or start thinking about AI the same way. There's like this FOMO, this fear of missing out, and what most organizations are doing is just slapping a tool to their workforce. And it feels like progress. You've made a decision. You're spending now money, budget. Everyone has access on paper, you can tell the board that you're using AI, right? But here is what actually happens. 92% of organizations in the US are already using AI in some form, which means that almost everyone, right? But only 7% report a meaningful improvement in how the organization actually runs. So suddenly you are spending more money on a tool that everybody has access, but you're not that much efficient. And then when you see the news, it's supposed to transform your operations, transform your company, transform the whole world, but it is not affecting in a positive way, at least in how you were expecting that AI would transform your organization or your business. So, I mean, and think about it. Everyone is using it. My mom, I was just speaking with Wes, his mother, everybody is using AI in some way, right? They're using ChatGPT, or some of them might not even know they're using AI because they're interacting with Google, for example, through Gemini with the AI features, but it's causing no meaningful impact in organizations. No one is getting better because of it. So the question that I want to answer today is not if we should use AI. I think that question is pretty obvious. We should be using AI. The question is over. The real question is, why are so few organizations actually having an impact with AI, and what are they doing different? So my name is Jesus. I run Local Agency and I run FOSS AI Labs, which is where we do AI adoption for serious operators. The short version of everything that I am about to show you is this. The problem is almost never the tool. It's the order of operations. In the next half hour, I'll give you the four-phase path that separates that 7% from everyone else. And then you'll hear from two leaders at a very large organization that are living this process right now in real time. And we'll hear from them how are they tackling this challenge. So let's name it. Let's name the trap directly. I call it the adoption paradox. Almost everyone uses AI, almost no one benefits from it. When you look under the hood at the organizations stuck on the wrong side of the gap, it's the same three things every time. The first one is no documented workflows. Only about 4% of organizations have processes written down and repeatable. So when someone figures out a genuinely good way to use AI, it lives in their heads. And then they leave, and the advantage of using AI lives with them. It's incredible when we work with organizations and businesses that are making money and they're profitable and growing and have no SOPs, or have some SOPs that HR generated months or even years ago. Nobody reads them, nobody knows about them. They no longer matter because they don't affect the organization in any way. They're like forgotten paper. And that affects everything that we're going to see afterwards. There is no governance, right? So pretty much no one has a policy in terms of how do we use AI? When do we use AI? What tools in our tech stack can AI touch or not? Like, can your AI connect to your email account? Can your AI not only read but delete emails, delete things in your database? Um, so people use, and that might be like a step further, but people use whatever tool they find, whatever tool they feel comfortable with. There is no standard and there is no organizational learning. On top of that, there is something that should be like a big red flag, is that since there's no governance and no SOPs, in many cases, people are using their own free personal account and putting information about your business in that free account. And that free account means that your data is being used to train the LLMs. And if they even share the link to that thing with someone else in the company, you end up with private business data publicly available for anyone. Google is even scraping that data. So there's like this big challenge here as well. And the third one is knowledge is trapped in people. We just know how to handle that, right? Which is fine until you need software to handle it. You need AI to do it. Because we see every single day organizations thinking about implementing AI. And when we start understanding their processes, things live in people's heads. So when we're trying to build, imagine like a workflow, something as simple as if this happens, then X, otherwise Y. If that lives in someone's head, it's very hard to convert that into a piece of software like a workflow, an automation, eventually AI, because each person thinks of those workflows in different ways because they're personal, they're not documented. And then another very important part about this thing, and that's something that's really important, I really want you to hear it, is that it's the whole thing, an LLM is a context completion engine. So what that means is that it completes a pattern. The way LLMs work and the way AI works, it completes a pattern. So it looks at previous interactions of your, let's say, question and tries to find something that kind of makes sense. From a context completion engine, it has no additional context. So if the context is, we just kind of know how we do things around here, you are literally asking the model to invent the answer. And it will invent the answer, and it will probably make you believe that because it'll be very confident. And suddenly you end up with a hallucination, and you're like, AI actually does not work, right? Because you expected something from a tool that's not ready to interact with you in that way. If it's just completing context, and it has no context of your organization or your business or the way you work, your workflow works, then it literally won't work. But the issue is not the tool, it's how are you using the tool. So here's the reframe for the rest of the day. Success with AI is not a smarter tool. And the tools are getting smarter literally every week. It's 4 phases in order. If you skip them, especially the first one, if you skip them, the next one breaks and nothing works. So now I want to walk you through these 4 phases. By the way, if you have questions, you have the Q&A thingy, ask them there. Probably at the end, we'll cover, if not all, some of them, and then we can follow up later via email. So here we have the 4-phase framework. This is something that we've implemented ourselves at FOSS AI Labs, something that we've done with large and small organizations. We've learned the process, we've refined the process, and we ended up with this very simple framework, but it's very powerful, very robust. And I know because we've seen it work, it delivers, like it works at the end. So these 4 phases are like a building. They build on each other like floors building, right? You cannot power concrete on the 3rd floor without having the first one. Organizations that succeed walk through these in order. However, the challenge is that everybody wants to start here. Everyone wants their AI agents doing things in crazy ways. Like they want AI agents interacting with their CRM, with their tools, with their inventory system, with their ERP. They want AI employees so that they don't have to hire while they keep growing. But they haven't gone through the other steps. So let's start with the first one, the AI foundations. And sadly, for most, this is the least exciting one. And it is the most important one. Before we build anything, we need to map the operation. We need to map the operation of the business or the organization, map the operation of a department. Like if we're thinking about adding AI to your customer acquisition process, your sales process, we need to understand how you work today. Like what tools do you use? What does your team members do? Because again, probably you don't have your SOPs up to date. So we literally write things down. How are decisions made? What are the edge cases? What triggers an edge case? Where is the data living? Because that's another big challenge when we speak with organizations. They're like, we want to use AI for our sales team. And when we ask, like, what CRM are you using? They're like, oh, like we use like a spreadsheet to manage our clients. So that's not like a proper database, right? And then if you're like selling products and you have like your inventory and your purchase orders and your clients, data needs to live in a proper database so that AI can interact with the data and be useful for you. So, which means that the AI foundations is not only mapping the processes and documenting everything. In many cases, it's also about deciding which tools should you use. Like you should use a proper CRM, a proper inventory manager. You should use an ERP to manage your whole operation. And at the end, what all of these tools are just interfaces to data. Behind everything, there's a Excel-like looking thing, which is a database that's holding records. And that can be clients, that can be assets that you have in your company, products, sales, etc. So that AI foundations part is really important. Most organizations do not have the documentation, and it's not because they're careless. It's just that's how the business has always run and grown. But remember what I just said about context. AI cannot work without context. So this phase one is where you make the invisible visible. So it's the most important phase because it determines everything that happens afterwards. When we understand, or when you as a business leader understand your processes and your organization, then you actually understand what you need to change. Because when we're doing AI implementation with our customers, we're not only adding like automation and AI. I look at them as layers, automation and AI. So we're not only adding those layers to whatever process you have. We're like, okay, let's take a step back. What are your processes? Are these the best processes already? Like, are you following best practices in your industry, in your processes? And then, so because now is the moment to update those processes and then add automation and eventually add AI, right? So this is very critical because also understanding like the lay of the land in terms of your operations in your business will help us identify where is the ROI in terms of implementing AI or automation in your business. And you will identify where it makes sense to get started because AI can touch almost every single department in your organization, but you need to figure out like a game plan. So writing down how your operations work sounds a little bit abstract. So I wanted to show you how that actually looks like. Here on the right, you can see like a folder, which I'll pull up here, right? So here you have like, you're seeing my folder in my computer, right? And we have a CloudMD file, we have a voice folder, a team folder, an operations folder, and a guardrails folder. Then if I click on the voice folder, we have a couple documents. We have a brand guide and a communications playbook. Then we have like, for example, the team escalation rules and a list of roles, like an org chart. How we handle operations, how does our data flow inside of the organization, how do we make decisions, our framework. And we have like our SOPs, and we have our basic guardrails. For example, how do we price, like the logic in terms of pricing, and the rules that we never break. And then we have the CloudMD, which is like the brain, like that tells AI which folder and which file to use. So when we look at that document, and at the end, you'll have access to the tool in order to build all of these things for yourself. The important thing about this is that this is not the AI, right? This is the output of that first phase. This is what mapping your operations actually looks like when you're done. It's a bunch of documents, and typically documents are MD files, markdown files, which are text files. And every one of these files is a piece of tribal knowledge that used to live in someone's head and now is sitting in a place where AI can load that every single time that it works and that it needs that piece of information. Because AI is smart enough that if you're thinking about operations, it might look at these things and then it'll also look at your voice documents. Because let's assume that you're like, I need to, whatever, I need help. AI, I need your help in order to help me figure out what to do in this case, right? So it'll look at the decision framework. Based on that, it'll look at the SOPs, and then probably it needs to escalate to someone else, look at the rules, decide who's the person that needs to be escalated, and then draft like a, let's say, a potential email following your communications playbook and following your brand guide in terms of your voice and tone, right? So it's looking at the whole thing, and that makes AI useful. That literally changes your life. Having these bunch of documents, and you can expand these documents a lot more and be a lot more granular, is a game changer. Because when people ask me, like, what do I get out of this boring phase? This is it. And this doesn't look like much, but we have had clients where we only do this part and their life changes and their organization changes. Because now the AI has all of that context, and then it's actually useful in terms of helping you do whatever you ask from it. Everything that we do afterwards, or everything that you as a leader do afterwards, is based on this. This is literally the foundation, the most important thing. The next one is the training, right? This is phase two, is sitting with your team, role by role, department by department, and understanding what they do, which we did on the first phase. And then we make it so that they use the tools and the tools fit how they work. This is not like a generic how to write a prompt session that I'm sure you have attended a lot of sessions already, and probably you don't get out anything or a lot from those sessions. Like, this is not theater. This is really understanding how your business operates, which tools they're using by department, and then based on that, building these training materials and this logic. And in many cases, we even go like a step further depending on the engagement, and we help the business connect their AI tools, either Claude or ChatGPT, whatever, something custom, to their platform. So connecting to your CRM, to your inventory management, to your procurement system, etc., or building those tools as well, right? Because then the AI is useful, and at the same time, your team starts learning how to use AI. Because it's one thing to interact with ChatGPT and be like, help me draft an email, but it's a different thing to interact with an AI that's extremely smart, PhD level smart. And you also have to understand, and by you, I mean everyone, we all need to understand how to interact with AI, how to talk with AI, how to ask things from the AI. Because the level of knowledge that the AI has is probably already surpassing what we as humans have in certain capacities, but we have to speak to it in a certain way. We have to be a little bit logical in that sense. So the training part is not only me speaking as I am doing today, but sitting down with people, understanding their workflows, and then figuring out together when does adding AI to their workflow and their day-to-day and their process make sense, and becoming those things habits for them, so that when we leave, they keep doing that. And then that kind of opens up like the can of ideas in terms of, oh, AI is helping me do these better, faster, whatever. And then they start thinking about how to do that in the rest of their workday, and then they become very efficient. When we started, we talked about let's buy licenses for everyone, right? And this is where the buying licenses for everyone mistake shows up. You hand an employee a tool with no training, and your return is a small handful of curious people, like power users. They would have figured it out already. Probably they're already paying for something, for some tool, and a large pool, 80%, following the 20/80 rule, 80% of people indifferent about the tool because they don't know how to interact with that. They don't know the value that they can get from using that in their day-to-day work. So phase two, the training part, let's say the end of phase two, the training part, is turning that training, that tool, into a habit. Without it, you're paying for software that people don't use, don't open, So there's no value in that. And that's when people are like, actually AI failed. And it's not that. It's you didn't buy capabilities for your team. You didn't upskill your team to learn and to use those tools. You just bought a bunch of logins and nobody's using them. Then there's phase three. And this is not like a required phase in many cases, but it's like a good next step in most cases. So phase three, what we call the private AI workspace, is like a company-wide AI environment built on the foundations of phase one and the training module. It has all of the context of your business, like your branding, your data, your access controls. It knows your documents. It follows your security model. It respects who is allowed to see what or to interact with what data, right? And it gets sharper the more that your team uses it. Another important thing, and this is becoming like a hot topic right now in AI implementation, is that it's becoming very expensive, no matter the size of the organization. It is becoming very expensive to give everyone access to the same models, to the same tools. Right now, probably you already know, Claude has the most expensive models they just released and then took it back, but eventually they're going to release the newest model, which is exponentially more expensive than the previous version, and we can only expect that to continue. So, and we have even seen that at Local and Trust, like we were spending literally thousands of dollars a month on AI, and then when we started looking at how were people interacting with the AI, we kind of understood that not everyone needs the same models, the same access to the same tools. And by that, I mean, like in our case, our developers probably need like the best model for development, but your marketing team doesn't actually need that model, which is the most expensive. They need a model that's very good for writing, for example. And then your sales team, let's say that we end up building like a workflow where an AI agent does research in terms of your ideal customer profile or outreach or whatever. They might need a different model, potentially like the Twitter model, which is very good at that. So, and there's a lot of savings when we do like these private AI workspaces because not everyone needs access to the same thing. So again, let's give access to ChatGPT to everyone or to Claude to everyone. In many cases, it's a good, depending on your organization and different factors. But in some other cases, that's not the right approach. We might prefer something like this where different people interact with different models. But the important thing is that there's this knowledge base. I'll show you that in a second. There's this knowledge base that is shared, and then everyone interacts with AI under that umbrella. So without the foundations from the first phase, without the training, it's a beautiful empty room, right? You have like the best, literally the best tool that humanity could have ever invented, and nobody's using that. Nobody knows how to use that. So let me show you what one of these private AI workspaces look like. This is Nexus. It's our private AI workspace. I'll zoom in a second. And it's like the same idea that I just described. So for example, let me do this. All right, here we go. Okay. So the first thing here, you can follow my mouse. At the top, we have a select a model. By default, we can have a different model. So let's say that, again, not everyone needs access to the latest Anthropic model. So we have a default model, which is, let's say, cheaper but capable, right, for everyone. And then based on the permissions that each person has, we can give them access to different models. By models, I mean different LLMs like OpenAI, Claude, Google, etc. So we might decide there's like a default good enough model that's not very expensive for everyday stuff. Then here on the left sidebar, we have folders, right? So in this case, this is ours. So this is like projects that we're building. And the cool thing is that each project has context that's specific to that project. But the most important thing is probably here on the left top sidebar, which is called the workspace. And then let me go over to this slide, where the workspace holds all of our context. So remember that I showed you these bunch of folders, and we have a lot more. So we're basically uploading all of the contents that we have here, literally all of these files, all of these markdown files, over to the knowledge base here of our Nexus. That way, every time someone interacts with AI through this custom tool, it's looking at that knowledge base. So every time you're like, help me draft an email for a client, it knows who we are, what do we sell, how do we communicate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. our teams. I mean, there's a lot of context there. On top of that, we have custom prompts, custom skills, and custom tools. So in this case, for example, we have a client task generator that someone on our team, Cecilia, built, right? So if someone wants to generate a task for a client, they'll add slash client task generator, add some context, and the skill that will be called will generate like a specific format or like a specific piece of text, depending on how you want. And then we have hundreds of skills that are shared. We have a bunch of prompts as well. So again, these are like a group of skills put together into a prompt. We have, that I didn't load here, we have custom tools. So we could connect to our CRM, we could connect to our project manager tool, to our admin time tracker, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. One of the cool things about this is that, which I also didn't add the screenshot, is that we have, as admins, we have visibility into who is using what. So it's not only about giving different models to different people, it's about giving permissions, it's about knowing who's using AI in which way. And that way, in our case, from spending thousands of dollars, we spend low hundreds of dollars. People get the same output because they still interact with AI. They still get the value of AI. But again, no, it's not that everybody needs the same level of model in their day-to-day operations. It's not that Nexus is like a smarter chatbot than something else. It's just like a harness, a tool that's standing on top of what we generated on phase 1 and phase 2. The foundation documents that are here on the workspace are the documents that we generated during the audit. Right? The training is what makes people come back and every single day use these skills and use these prompts and use this tool and centralize all of the information about all of our clients and projects in this tool. It's a very cool tool as well because we can have shared folders and shared context, so it's like a very powerful stuff. And again, giving access to tools is a good way to get started, but giving access to a tool like this that has a full context is all more powerful. This is where our team lives, and then this is how I can see that there's like value of using AI in an organization like ours or like one of our clients. Then we have the fourth phase, what we call AI native operations. This is what everybody wants, right? This is the end goal. Phase 4 is agents running the work your team shouldn't have to touch. I'll show you a few examples in a second. It's literally the repetitive stuff that we already know the rules. So rule-shaped work handed off to a system that runs continuously in the background without making mistakes. Not everyone can be handled by AI native operations. Obviously, there's a lot of human touch in a bunch of decisions where you have like a human in the loop process. So you don't hand over the whole process to an AI, you just hand over parts of the thing and then a human makes certain decisions. I'll show you a few things as well. So for example, a few examples that we've built in for sales for clients, etc. An inbox triage agent, right? So for example, we have something in our email, and for some clients, we've done stuff like this as well. The AI agent is reading every email that comes into an inbox. It sorts it. If it's an email that needs a reply, it'll draft the replies, obviously using the voice into document and all of those things. And then we'll notify the person that the draft is ready and it's ready for approval, right? And then someone will verify that, change something, or just approve it, and then it gets sent. And this one, the one in the middle, is doing like processing documents, right? So it identifies like invoices or purchase orders or stuff like that, extracts information that you need, updating the ERP, notifying people, and it's something that someone was doing full time and now they spend maybe an hour verifying certain things, and that's it, like on the review thing. Because again, all of the edge cases we have to, when we're building AI stuff, we have to make sure when do we need a human, right? So we have like a certainty level. So if we're 100% certain that this invoice is $12,400, then we can move it over. But if we're not that sure, if whatever the AI tool could not read it, there's like, it's not 100% sure, then we might assign it to a different queue and have a human review that. Or the report builder, which is something very typical. Again, a lot of people in different organizations are building reports, building presentations for their team. That's something that's very easy to replicate with an AI agent. And then every morning, you wake up, and we have a couple of case studies on our website. Every morning you wake up and you have your report ready that the AI did at 4 a.m. without human touch. So all of these, what these have in common is that none of them is guessing, and that's really important. Each one is reading from the foundation of documents. They know how the decisions are made. They're plugged into a workflow that the team was already doing, and now it's this thing is doing it better, and operating inside a private thing, right? It's like internal for the business. And that's the whole reason that these tools can run unattended. The agent is not magic, right? It has all of these phases built under that. Another one that we've built, a few that is very, very impressive, and we have also a case study on our website, what we call the AI employee. It's like a proactive, almost sentient AI tool that has it's proactive. It's really impressive, and we have one in our CRM. So it's constantly looking at deals, identifying leads. It follows up, generates to-dos, notifies the team. It's crazy because in our Slack we see the AI employee in our sales department always working and always notifying people. But again, you need this very robust and solid foundation in order to put an AI agent that basically does what a human has been doing so far and have it interact with the team and generate proposals, follow-ups, etc. So, as I said earlier, you cannot skip to, obviously this sounds exciting and everybody wants that, but you cannot skip to it, right? When you look at what phase 4 needs, now you understand what there's phase 1, 2, and 3. If you, and we've seen that in quite a few cases, businesses or organizations jumping into, I found like this software as a service AI agent, and it's only whatever, a couple $100 a month, and then it has no context, so it actually doesn't work. It's a demo that nobody trusts because you see it hallucinate once, and then you're like, we cannot use this in our business because this thing cannot interact with our customers or even with our employees if it's making things up. So that's why the architecture and that foundation is really, really important. So each phase makes the next one work. Foundations make the training meaningful. The training makes the workspace useful, the private workspace, and then the workspace makes the agent trustworthy. It's also something that in many cases we do with time. Like we don't do all of them together. We first do the first and second phase, and then eventually we have enough information in order to put together the private AI workspace, have the team use it, and then typically employees or team members start thinking about other things, and that's when the agents kind of make sense. After people have done it enough, that it kind of makes sense to hand over that like workflow to an AI agent. So what does this mean for you? Where do you get started? Like document your SOPs. The honest answer is not the one that you wanted, but if you start by documenting your SOPs, that way you can actually have the AI do things for you. That's phase 1. And the cool thing is that it's free for you. I mean, we have a service and we do this for our clients, but at the end, I don't know if exactly at the end or tomorrow morning, you'll get an email with the AI blueprint. This is what we use ourselves. This is what we use with our clients, a short version of this. So basically, you'll be able to either put the blueprint in your Claude or your ChatGPT, or you can just follow the PDF, and then it'll generate all of these documents that you need for AI to be useful. You don't have to figure it out from a blank page. So we'll give you the blueprint. You'll just follow through it. It'll take a few hours. But then at the end, you will see the big difference between whatever you're getting out of AI today compared to what you can get after using this thing. So I could keep talking about this, but I invited Jordan and West. Let me go to the next slide. There we go. Jordan West. Jordan is the VP of Operations of Rising Ground. Rising Ground is a very large organization in New York. I'll bring you both to the. Let me see. How can I do that? How do I bring you to? I don't know if you can see both Jordan and West. If you can unmute yourselves.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Jordan and There's West. I'll try to bring them both in a screen in a second. And let me go back briefly to, sorry, I think, I don't know if you're looking at the presentation, but Rising Ground has over 1,800 employees, hundreds of programs. So they're a very large nonprofit based in New York. They've been around for almost a couple hundred years. And Jordan, we've been lucky to have been working with Jordan for quite a few years at Low Code. And we were talking the other day about the governance part, right? And how at a very large organization, they're thinking about implementing AI. So I'll invite West first, and then West, like, can you give a brief recap? I briefly introduced Rising Ground, like a brief recap of how you're thinking, like your AI strategy. How do you start? When did you start? What do you look at when you think about this process?
Sure, sure. Thank you very much. Um, so just for context, I'm the assistant vice president for a residential treatment center. So we work in human services field, and I oversee a residential treatment program with approximately 75 staff, 40 families. And my work focuses on the program operations, quality improvement, and I've been exploring with Jordan and our AI governance committee how AI can help human service organizations work smarter while still staying mission focused. Um, I think like a lot of organizations, we're in the infancy stage. We're still in the early stages of the adoption of AI. And I think the important piece is um, identifying what AI is going to solve rather than how to just make it an everyday thing. I think for any DIY project, right, you need to look at what tool you need, and in order to do that, you need to know what you want to solve. Um, we do have a AI governance committee that has started approximately maybe 6 months ago or so. And in that committee, we've developed an AI policy, really to ensure that we're approaching the work thoughtfully, responsibly, and with the appropriate safeguards in place. At this stage, we haven't encouraged widespread organizational use of AI, but we know that it's happening, as Jesus shared earlier. And that was one of the reasons that we wanted to get on top of this and start working towards just being better prepared and using a lot of the steps that was shared earlier, and bringing this to light in terms of having better outcomes.
What are the use cases that you're seeing that people in the organization are wanting to use AI for?
Well, largely, I think people are using ChatGPT, probably Claude, to really. I, I think the biggest reason they're using it and what they're using it for is that in human services, our challenge is not the lack of data. We have a lot of data. It's a lack of time to turn data into decisions, right? So a lot of people are using it to do just that. They're using it to make a 30-minute task a 10-second task, helping with policies, procedures, turning those into presentations, one-page reviews. I also have a therapeutic services team that uses Canva, Nano Banana, and a lot of those to create posters and imagery and things like that. And I think that's the basic level of usage at our agency.
And then where would you want, like, what are the cases where you would want AI to be used for, let's say, in a couple of years after you upskill your team, maybe you connect like your different tools that you're used to doing internally? Like, where do you see like a big unlock of like this could really transform how we operate in like in this specific department, this specific use case? Like maybe you're not ready today, but like what would be like a nice to have goal for, let's say, in a year or a couple of years?
hmm I think the overall goal is more human time.
Okay.
Right. I think giving us more time to interact with families instead of sitting behind desks and inputting data and things like that. I know in our AI governance committee team meetings that we've talked about automating a lot of the office work. So you mentioned invoices, approvals. I know Jordan has shared that in our conversations of how can we just have something that can make those decisions for us, or at least draft it and then send it to us for approval. I think that's a big piece. So definitely in the budgeting financial piece of our work. I also think that getting to a space where it can help us utilize resources that we may not know about, as AI can search the world and find things. I think using it for that, and then in our conversations, KPIs and figuring out how what those look like. I really think they're going to really come along the way. And yeah, again, we're in the beginning, so we're learning as we go, but nobody wakes up wanting to use AI really. A lot of people are kind of hesitant, but it's really about, for us, building a training curriculum, analyzing performance data, and making sure that we make steps in that direction.
Right. And then when you started the AI governance committee, like what did you start with? Like I assume that some guidelines in terms of what not to use AI for, like what kind of documents did you generate and how has that evolved as time passes and people maybe use AI different?
Great question. So, so, and I laugh a little bit because there are basic things that you have to get used to, that are very important. So in one of our meetings, we literally said, we're asking a lot of questions and we're not using AI ourselves. Like we're in a meeting, we're asking different questions, but ChatGPT is not up on the screen. We're not using it in our meetings. So I think getting comfortable with that. In terms of policies, we have a policy around using artificial intelligence, and going back and forth with that, we did things like looking at not just AI, but how are you using AI? Are you using meta glasses at the in the workplace? And what does that look like? So we have a policy around that, and then looking at how other organizations are doing the same thing. We also have we're finalizing a survey with our staff to figure out how they're using it, right? Because you spoke earlier about buying 1,000 licenses and only 10 people use them, right? It's wasted money. So we're looking at different departments and what tools would be best used in each department. So do you need Nano Banana, or should you just be using ChatGPT? Do you need any of them? You probably do in some way. But those things have come out of our committee so far. We just recently announced to our agency that we have a committee. We feel we're at that point where we're preparing things such as ideas of an AI day, just to get people comfortable with it, and having like meta glasses on a display and showing them these are things that people use, and these are part of the policy, and what can or can't be used. And yeah, I think that's where we're at so far.
Where are you like drawing the red line in terms of AI?
So I think two big things that stand out to me is the entering of private information, right? We have clinical work that's done. HIPAA is a big thing, so
Right.
it's ensuring that we don't have the infrastructure or setup right now to enter private information into any AI platform. So that's where we draw a line, is ensuring that people understand that right now, even though we were softly encouraging the use because we haven't put
Hmm.
in the guidelines yet, really. Um, that's one big piece, and I think the other big piece of drawing a red line is helping staff understand that you're responsible for the work that AI gives you. Right,
Right.
whatever you're prompting, whatever you're doing in AI, if you submit that, you are responsible for it. So if your prompts have given AI a certain tone or profile, and they respond to an email nasty or in a certain way, you are responsible for that once you submit it. And I think those are two, Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think those are two big things that we've spoken about in regards to red lines.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think one of the other things to add, I mean, West has really summarized where we are at Rising Ground with our work and our first chapter into the AI journey. But the other thing that I want to make sure that we say too is that as we are really at the beginning, we are in the process of putting our infrastructure into place. And so one of the things that's been outlined in our AI policy is we're really asking people to look at what we call our acceptable use document. And it's very clear on what types of things they can use AI for and what kinds of things we really want them to ask us about. And so we're in the process of also putting the infrastructure in place where we have a form that someone can write to us and ask us if they can use AI for something that may be unclear based on the policy document and the acceptable use document. And once the committee gets that question or that exploratory inquiry about whether or not AI can be used for a certain purpose, the AI governance committee would speak about it, confirm it, and then document it into a repository. So we're not just saying yes to a particular use, but our organization intends to really keep track of the inquiries that are coming in and those that are given the green light to use AI, so that we have a place to look back and really know what we've said yes to and what we've had hesitations about as an organization, to really help build our capacity in the future and for future decisions.
That's super interesting. And in terms of like the training part, I assume, I mean, you are in operations, so you have like a pretty good idea of how you operate. But in terms of the training part, like, is that something that, because especially with Rising Ground, like you have, I don't know, like it's not everyone sitting on a desk on a computer, right? You have like drivers, many caseworkers, etc. So maybe I'm wrong, but maybe not everyone needs AI, or definitely not everyone needs AI in the same way as Wes previously mentioned. So how do you perceive like the training part in terms of, does everyone need to learn the same things? Do we just give like training to like office workers because we assume that they're gonna get the most out of AI? Like that upskilling part, do you think it's the same for everyone, or specific, and specific by what? Like by department, by use case, by, I don't know.
I think that that's a good question. I would add some of the to help answer this. Some of the research I've done is when we have interviews with clients recently or candidates recently that are internal, I ask them, how are you currently using AI within the organization? Just to get an
Mm,
idea, right? And I share that because some of them have shared, I've already started training my staff. So I think there's a piece of training that's probably going on internally that we first have to get a hold of that, because that may be very useful, right? We don't want to be redundant and doing some training that they're already doing that we could take on or use for other departments. So I think that's one of the first things is we know people are using it. Now I've heard today people are training people on it. So understanding what they're doing because they may have already done some of the work for us, right? And then I think the other answer to your question is yes, it's going to be program specific. It's going to be based on outcomes and results and what we're looking for. And also regulatory wise, what can we do? Right?
right.
We may be able to use AI for something, but we may not be allowed to use it for that. And then understanding, is that something we have to advocate for? Is that something we have to find out if another organization is doing it in a different way that's still productive and follow those guidelines? I think that's another piece to consider as well.
Interesting. So if, based on, you've mentioned it a couple of times already, um, you're, let's say, in touch with other probably nonprofits as well in terms of what they're doing in order to maybe adopt some of the things that, or copy some of the things that they're doing. Does that mean that, like, how do you see specifically for nonprofits like yours, like the AI ecosystem? Like, do you know which direction to take, or is this mainly based on examples that you see out in the, let's say, market in terms of like, oh, like these guys are figuring this thing with AI, we should do the same?
Yeah. I think I've heard this recently, probably in the past year. AI is the wild, wild west, right? And
Yes.
I think that's what it is. I think no matter how I answer you today, tomorrow can change, right? That's how fast it's moving. So I would share that I've had conversations with other agencies and asking them where they are at with AI usage. And even though we're in the infancy stage, we're either aligned with them or we're actually a step ahead. I think that and I know I shared this with you before when we were talking. We've interviewed clients and we asked them, where's your level of experience with AI, right? And usage, et cetera. And if someone says a 7 or 8 or a 9, they probably don't fully understand AI because it's that vast. It changes that quickly. And if you were a 9 or 10, you're probably locked up in a room with no windows and just in 6 computers all day. It's that type of
Yeah.
situation. So to answer your question specifically, we have been in contact with other agencies. I have, and in speaking with them, speaking with external candidates that are applying for a job from other agencies, I
Mhm.
think we're all on the same level right now, and that can change daily.
Yeah. Do you, are you afraid of the regulatory side, especially for a nonprofit like yours? Like, do you see more value of using AI and you're like, okay, let's go ahead and then we figure this out? Or the opposite? You're like, let's take a step back and not rush into AI because we don't know like the regulatory side of how can this affect us.
Well, I think there's probably gonna we're probably going to get to a point where advocacy comes into place, right? That it comes into play. And I say that because as you were asking the question, I actually remembered a conversation with Office of Children and Family Services in New York State. And I specifically emailed and asked them, what are your regulations around AI use? And they said they didn't have one yet.
Okay.
And so that tells us where we're at, that bringing it to the table, there has to be some advocacy around why it's important to us. What does it help us do better? How does it help us deliver a better service to the families and people that we work with? And I think that's the level that the direction that we're going in. And to do that, we have to fully understand. And I'm very confident that the energy and effort we're putting into our committee is getting us to that space where we're going to be able to present something to our oversight and
Okay.
say, hey, this is why we need to use this, and these are the results we think we can get. These are results we have achieved staying within the guidelines and parameters.
Okay. That's fantastic. Okay, cool. That's great. So thank you, West. Thank you, Jordan, for joining us today.
Thank you.
I think.
And
Right. So yeah, go on.
and I was going to say there was a question in the Q&A. Didn't know if I could answer.
Yeah,
I
of
saw.
course.
So someone mentioned Replit.
Right.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
and I did just want to give a short answer to that. Um, I think the question I was asked, a better way to phrase it may be, if you had to move off of that platform, what would it take for you to move off of that platform? Right? I think that's really the question, because if you have something that can be replicated outside of that, then yes, you're on somebody else's land and you're not totally relying on their system. But if you have to use their system to strengthen what you're doing, then yes, then if they close down tomorrow, you would lose a lot.
Agree. The advantage of that is that it's very easy to let's say export basically your code from Replit and host it yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. Oh, good to see you here. Yeah, that's good. Alrighty. So I'll answer a few questions, the Q&A in a second. I saw some about sharing the slides. We will share the slides. We will share the recording, and we will share the blueprint to everyone who attended today. So by email, our content team will follow up with that and send you everything that you need. And we're 100% open. If you have any question, comment, feedback, you can send us an email. If you have a question for Jordan or Wes, you can send me an email and I can put you in touch with them as well in order for them to follow up with your question if it's like operations, nonprofit, etc. related. From my end, this is all. Thank you all for joining today. Thank you for attending. Hope you got something useful out of this session, and I hope to see you on the next one. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Take care, everyone.